Hello, everyone. My name is Paulo. I work at Codeminer 42, and I came with this brown bag today to give some very basic introduction to the Vim editor. And I wanted to do this because around 2 years ago, I decided to use Vim as my main editor, and I did some mistakes. For example, I tried to imitate all the features I had from Atom Editor or Sublime in Vim, and that held me back a while because I didn't really know how to work with the Vim basics. So what I suggest today for anyone starting to Vim is to learn the basics of Vim before trying to go into plugins and everything else, because there's a lot of features that comes with Vim, and you probably don't need plugins for most of the work you do. So let's go. What is Vim actually? Vim stands for VI Improved, and VI is a basic editor that's usually pre-installed with Linux distributions and also Mac. And there are also other versions. For example, the GVim, that is the GTK or graphical version. And there's also the Nelvim, that's a version of Vim that allows extending with Lua scripts. And this is something interesting because Vim is an editor that is highly extensible. And this is one of the advantages of it, that you can configure to do like anything, basically. And it uses the Vim script, that is a collection of scripts or a language for Vim itself. It's not very, how can I say, it's very different from programming languages. So this is why it exists the now Vim, which allows to scripting with Lua language. I myself use the basic Vim because I'm used to it and I didn't took the time to change to now Vim for no specific reason. And some editors, like I know Atom, Sublime, and also VS Code have a Vim mode. So if anyone want to start at least trying navigation or some basic commands, you can use the Vim mode on your editor. So let's go. What's the first thing you have to learn to start using Vim is how to exit Vim, of course. And you do this with the column Q command. Or if you want to exit without saving anything, you can use a bang. Or you can use QA that will close every window or tab you have open on the Vim editor. I will go to this later. But just to know, if you type QA bang, you will exit from everything you have open. And to learn commands and other stuff, it's good to know the help command. The help is the Vim documentation, and it's a really good documentation. Like you can have a lot of stuff here, and you can, for example, open specific topics in the help by typing help and the topic, and it goes to that topic on documentation. One thing that Vim has different from other graphical editors is that it has different modes. And for example, if you are using Sublime or Atom or any other editor, you are most of the time editing text, and the only mode you have in comparison is the edit or insert mode, because everything you type will go into the text or into the document you're editing. Vim is different in this way because it has different modes that are different ways to interact with the file you're editing. The basic one, or the most used, is the normal mode. That is the one you come when you open Vim, and is a mode that you use for navigation on the text. and to interact, like adding comments or key bindings. And from any other mode, every time you type ask, you will go back to the normal mode. The visual mode is accessed with the V key, and it's used to select this text. You will be selecting text in several occasions, and the most used of them is to copy or replace text or delete text. For example, if I type UI, I will be copying this text, and then I can paste it anywhere else. And there's also the insert or replace mode. The insert mode is what we use to actually type. So this is the mode you will be using to get to make Vim work like other graphical editors. And this is probably the one that's used most of the time. There's also the command mode that is, I already gave some examples that we access with the colon key. And this is where you type commands like the quit command, that is to exit or and basically command is configuration for Vim. So configure Vim through commands. I will show this on an example here. Usually, the main configuration from Vim comes from the vimrc file or the Vim directory on your home folder. The Vim directory is where you have plugins installed, but your main configuration will usually be on the vimrc file. What we're looking here is a basic Vim installation that comes from my system, so there's nothing configured yet. And I will create a new file just to write some configurations and see how they work on the go. So I will create an example.vim. Oops. My mistake here. I will create an example.vim, and this will be our configuration file here. So you probably want to create this file under your home folder, but I already have one, so I'm not overriding it. So this is why I'm creating a new one just for examples. So one of the first things you want to do when you start working with Vim is to have syntax highlight. So I will add this here, this configuration. And also, as I use a dark background, I will set background dark. So this is our basically configuration. And in Vim config files, the quote, double quote is a comment. So let's just add a comment to know what we're doing here. To load this configuration, we should source this file. This is done automatically when you start Vim, if this is the vimrc file. But as I'm using a different file, I can use the source command. And instead of passing the file name, I can use the % symbol. The % always translates to the current open file, the path to the file. So if I do this, we get syntax highlight and the colors for a dark background. And you see that on this other file, it's also have syntax highlight. Another configuration, good configuration to use is to add line numbers. So we can source it again, and now we have line numbers on every line. So you think so far that I've been editing some files. There are some commands to edit files, and the main to open files, we can tell like that. The most used is the edit or just E, and you can pass the file path here to open that file. You can also use view, that will open it as read only, so you can save on that. And there are some configuration that can be used to help this. For example, let's use this one. If I set path like this, it won't make much difference because I don't have subdirectors, but with this, I could, if I had subfolders here, I could autocomplete the folders and type, for example, it would complete with tab to a file named example in any folder I have. Other way to open files is to use the Explorer. It's the NetRW. It's what's called is a plugin for Vim. That's a built-in plugin to open directories and files, and it basically opens a Explorer window, so I can use to select files. And there are some variations for this command. For example, you can use vExplorer to open on a split window. Or another interesting is the lExplorer that opens a split window on the left side, and it will open the files on the previous used window. So this way I open the files here instead of the same window. We'll go back to this in a moment. Okay, other stuff. Navigation in the basic navigation in Vim is using these keys. That this has like old keyboard didn't have arrow keys, so this is the keys that are used for navigation, basically. But more recent Vim installations also support the arrow keys, so you can use the arrow keys without any problem. And there are also other keys, like for example, the W is the word navigation, so it will always go to the next word, the beginning of the next word. The B will go back to the beginning of the current word, and the E will go to the end of the word. There are others like the caret that goes to the beginning of line, and the dollar goes to the end. GG goes to the start of the file, and uppercase G goes to the end. And if I type the line number, for example, 20 GG, I go to that line specifically. So this is a good way to quick go through your file, your open file, without using the mouse, because normally you won't be using mouse to navigate in Vim. There are also these breakers, square breakers, no, breakers, that you use to navigate through open line, empty lines. So it will jump to the next empty line. To select this text, I already said that you can use the V key. So I can select text here, and I use the UI key to copy. I can also type like UI 2 times to copy the entire line, and I use P to paste. And I can use, for example, most of these comments, you can have a number before the comment, that is how many times you use the comment. So for example, if I want to pass 10 times, I can use 10p to duplicate lines or copy the text several times. And the D key is used to delete lines, and it also copies. And DD will delete the entire line, so the motions are the same. These keys can be combined. For example, I can type DW to delete a word, or D2W to delete 2 words, and so on. Everything I copy or yank, the term for this in Vim is yank actually, is saved to a register. I can use the reg command to use the register to show the registers. Think of the register as a clipboard manager for Vim, and I can decide which register I'm using the double quote and the name of the register to copy or to paste, for example. And one thing that is interesting, that Vim has access to the system clipboard. So for example, I use the mouse just as an example here. So if I copy this line, I copy this to my system clipboard, so I can use the plus register to paste it. I just paste it here. For Linux users that you also have a second clipboard, that is the mouse selection, you can use the star key to copy to or from that register. This is just basically like the basic commands, but you can also, commands not the basic k-bindings or maps, but you can also write your own mappings. So let's do some examples. For example, I showed the explore command before, so let's make a mapping for this. Vim, you can map basically any key, but it's common to use the leader key, that is by default the / key. So if I map, for example, leader D to open the Explorer on the left side, and I add a carriage return. So this will bind my leader key D after that to do the command I placed here. So I just type leader D. Oops, just a moment. I forgot to source this. So now if I type leader key, it will execute the command and open the Explorer here. Let's do another example here. If I use leader 0 to, this is the command, to show or hide the line numbers. Again, I have to source this file after changing it. So leader 0, oops, I typed it wrong here. So now leader 0 will, just a moment. This is, oh, of course. It is not, this is not a command, this is a configuration. So I just have to set in the number. Now it will work. The leader 0 will show or hide the line numbers. So you've seen that I've been editing 2 files here, and they are actually open in buffers. Buffer is in-memory representation of a file in Vim, and I can list the buffers with the buffers command or with the ls command, and it shows the buffer list and a buffer number. So to start editing a buffer I already have in my memory, I can type buffer and the number. So I will go to navigate to the buffers like this. Or if I type Control caret or Control 6, I will be switching through the open buffers. We can create a map, a simple map here to, for example, leader B to type ls and already type buffer and space. Let's see if this works. So leader B will list the buffers and expect me to type the buffer number, so I can switch buffers this way. I myself use a different key to navigate through buffers because I think control caret is a little hard to remember. So what I do is use the GB command, and I just map it to control caret. So now if I type GB, I will be switching through buffers. I already showed you Windows. What Windows is basically every buffer is open in a window in Vim, and you can have several windows open at the same time with using the split command. So this is a horizontal split, but I can have V split. And for example, the Explorer I showed before, the L Explorer command will open a split window, and I can have different buffers open in different windows here. This is good if you have like a big screen. I personally don't use this very much, despite for like open the Explorer or Minor or like some to differentiate files, stuff like that. And Vim has also tabs. If I open a new tab here, a tab can have windows inside it. So this is different from, let me just do example here. Yeah. This is different from other editors that the tab is just a way to show files. Here is the window that shows the file, and a tab can have many windows inside it. So for example, if I open, I have a keybind for that. If I open the Explorer here and I switch tabs, the other tab won't have it open, but this one have. So this is good to remember that windows live inside tabs and that a buffer is always shown in a window. To navigate between tabs, you can use the GT. And this is why I use the GB for buffers, just to be like a similar command. And I can type the number of the tab. For example, 1 GT will go to the first tab, 2 GT will go to the second. And I can also exit tabs using the Q command. For the ones who are used to using ctags, ctags is a command that creates, can I say, it's an index of functions, methods, or classes of your source code. So if you run ctags, you will create a tags file, and you can use the control square bracelet to navigate between tags. This helps to, for example, go to a function definition. I don't have a good source code to example here, so you can try by yourselves. But Vim also has some basic word completion. Like if I type anything, hit Control P, it will complete with the word, or it will provide some options if I have more than a matching word. And I can decide which one I want with the Control Y key. And Vim has also a smart autocomplete that's similar to how is it called? Similar to autocomplete from VS Code or other editors. So let's have these commands. This is not enabled by default because it's intended to be configurable. But if I set only off on omnifunc completion, this way I can use the Vim completion that is triggered with Control X, Control O. So it will present 0 options here, depending on what I typed before and of the language I am using on the current file. And it will also search for tags if you have a tags file. So it will autocomplete function names or class names, for example. And as Control P, I can use Control Y to decide the word I wanna put there. Another interesting thing is that I showed that the column you can use to type Vim comments, and with a column bang, you can type comments on the shell. So for example, if I type ls here, it will go to my shell, to my terminal, and shows the content there and wait for enter to go back. And I can also pass contents here. For example, if I do read ls, what the command returns to me in the terminal will be passed here. So if you need to have some command on the terminal and pass the contents back on your editor, you can use this. And you can also open a terminal inside Vim, like this. And I could open another Vim here, which is weird. But this is very useful because I can pass a command to the terminal. Instead of open an actual terminal, I can pass a command here, and it will open as read only the results here. And I use this to, for example, run spec tests. So I basically run terminal rspec and the file name, user the file I'm editing. So it will run the spec tests and present me inside the Vim window, the results. So it's very fast to do this, and I can also have a mapping. For example, I could use mapping leader r to run, and then terminal rspec and the file name. So this is a good way to run spec tests very fast on your current editor. Well, this is everything I have to show for now. There are several ways to learn Vim. I would recommend to access the vimcast.org. That's a collection of screencasts and tutorials how to use Vim. Or also there's the interactive lessons as Vim Adventures. It's basically a game that you control a character using Vim commands. It's very interesting, but you have to pay a fee to go. I think the first part is free, but you have to pay a value for the remaining. And there's also the Vim tutor command. That's okay. I don't know why this is not here, but it's usually available. This is a Vim command that has a tutorial to start using Vim inside Vim itself. This is probably because I'm not using the Vim configured as I usually do, but it shall work. Or is it a command? Oh, it is a command. It's a terminal command, like it's a separate application. If anyone is interested in checking my configuration files, you can see to my .files repository. There's a VRC there, and all the plugins I have installed are under the pack folder. And just to you see before we go, like this is actually the Vim configuration I have. Like we can use themes or other several other things. I have the buffers name here. This is not tabs, despite they look like tabs. This is the buffer names I can use to navigate. And I have some plugins, like for example, the fuzzy search plugin that I use to navigate through files here and get a preview. So once you know the basics, I suggest checking for most used plugins and see the ones you really like and help you. That's all, guys. Thanks for watching.